is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is a brand new track from the Bastards of BEALE record. The name of that tune was Silence the Sirens. And on the line right now is a guy I don't think is going to be silencing anything. It is the lead singer of Tora Tora, and the singer of that song, it is Anthony Corder. Anthony, how are you, man?
Hey, Chris, man. Thank you so much for doing this, man, the Classic Metal Show. I'm so excited to do this, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, Anthony, I got to tell you, man, I, as I told you right before we started, I don't know how this happened, but I have literally interviewed everybody from Motley Crue to Metallica and everything in between, and somehow never crossed paths with Tora Tora. I don't know how that happened.
Man, I know. Well, I'm so excited that we're catching up now. This is like perfect timing. We're super pumped, man. We've had the craziest experience over the past about year and a half. We bumped into the Frontiers guys back in 2017, and I'm telling you, we're super thankful to them and grateful that they gave us a platform to reconnect with our audience and all the fans. And I mean, we think of everybody as our family. I mean, the people that gave us this opportunity a long time ago to make records and stuff. So we're so excited to have something new to go out and see everybody with.
Sure. Now to backtrack a little bit, Tora Tora, you guys obviously had your quote unquote big run, I guess, in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, everybody and their brother knows Walking Shoes. It definitely was one of those tunes that got stuck in everybody's head. And then you guys went away. And then you came back in what, like 2007, 2008?
Yeah, we've all kind of always stayed in touch with each other. We were just kind of on a little hiatus. Everybody kind of had family things going on, and we all stayed creative. We're still, I mean, I don't think that part of us, it ever goes away. It's you got to have that outlet. But 2008, we kind of got back on and said, you know, let's go out and see some folks. We went out and hit Rocklahoma, and we bumped into a bunch of people that we had toured with and saw, you know, other bands that we're huge fans of. And we're like, oh man, we got to get this ramped back up. And just when time would allow, I guess is what it was, is logistically and, scheduling wise, we were trying to get everybody get back on track. Cause we're all family guys. And, that was a big part of us kind of taking a break. We had family and wanted to kind of raise our kids and stuff. Sure. And, but the being on the road part is something that you always are craving as a musician and stuff. That's a huge part of your life, especially we started really young and we're out on the road. We were lucky that A&M, the record label that we were with back then, gave us a lot of tour support and just a lot of support in general of promoting our records. And we just told them we didn't want to go home. So for about 6 years, we didn't go home. We stayed on the road and saw everybody that we could. And man, I'm telling you, some of the experiences that we went through together, it's just hard to put it in words. We started out as high school buddies, as a little garage band, and the guitar player and I were actually cutting grass for a living. My mom was a real estate agent, and we were cutting grass, and we were riding around going, man, wouldn't it be crazy if we could do some recordings and get them put out? And you know, the next thing we knew, we were signing a production deal with Ardent Studios in Memphis, and they shopped us, and we recorded a record for A&M. We showcased and got a deal. And I mean, it was like getting hit by lightning, man. But we just enjoyed the ride. We loved it. We had never traveled or anything. We were based out of Memphis, Tennessee. And when the first song came out, they put us on the road, and we never looked back from there. We just said, man, dude, this is what I want to do. I'm going to go for this. So sure.
Now I'm curious from your angle. I mean, because I honestly don't have an answer for it. You guys did not have the success of the biggest bands, the Rats, Motley, whatever, that were just mainstays. And I'll be honest, I don't understand it. I mean, you guys had a huge song, Walking Shoes was a huge song, but you also had the tracks to back. You had 3-4 singles on both of the first two records that could have been big hits. So I'm curious, you who was in the business and doing it at the time, did you see, something that was missing, or are you scratching your head the way I am?
Well, the funny thing about getting older, you get a lot of hindsight, 2020 kind of scenarios. Number one, man, all those bands that you mentioned, Rat and Motley Crue and all those people, man, we were huge fans of those. I mean, I had them plastered all over my walls.
Sure.
And we were just freaking out that we were getting to do music for a living. But when you were talking about maybe the missing element, timing is a huge part of like launching up and coming, emerging artist type people. Mm-hmm. And we were lucky. The timing of our record was great, man. The music was alive and well and everything was kicking. But one little thing that could have had to that, I mean, we actually, think about it sometimes. I mean, I don't sit here just pulling my hair out or anything, sure. But we'll think about it. I will. And A&M had started in Herb Alpert's, the back of his car in the 60s. He was literally selling records out of the trunk of his car. And they built the company up all the way from the 60s to about when we were signing with them. They ended up selling to Polygram right in the middle of our first single. Mm. So, that kind of has an effect on your company, man, when you're have corporations merging together and overlapping jobs and positions and stuff in the thing. So I'm not completely putting it on the corporate side of it, but I'm sure that had a big effect on our, our releases. Because Walking Shoes had a lot of momentum, and then we kind of had a little space between it and Guilty because of the transition of everything that was going on. So just from a hindsight kind of thing, that's one effect. But overall, man, the people that we work with from A&M, I'm still friends with some of those guys now. I actually am based in Nashville, and the band's still based out of Memphis, but I still run into people like our promotion guys, A&R guys, our product manager. I mean, I still see those. I bump into them, and we just freak out that we've known each other as long as we have. They were an amazing company, and we were in really great company on their roster. I mean, they had all kind of incredible rock bands that were on A&M. It was awesome.
No doubt, man. And you're obviously these days you're working with another company that Frontiers Records, that seems very focused on not only I don't want to say bringing this music back, because that's not really fair since you guys are all doing new music, but I would say more they're a label that seems to be focused on allowing you guys meaning all of the bands that had some success back in the day, but maybe didn't have the huge success, the opportunity to really create on your own terms. Is that fair?
Man, that's hitting the nail on the head for sure. And I mean, Frontiers has been around for like 20 years. Mm-hmm. I was talking to a guy yesterday about this. I mean, I remember I was familiar with the name from through Jimmy Jamison that sang for Survivor.
Sure. He was
based out of Memphis, and he sang on all the early Tora Tora stuff, all the Surprise Attack and Wild America. He was in on the backgrounds and stuff with all that. If he was in town, he would come and work the studio with us, and we loved him. He's amazing. He was a real character. He always had like a mischievous kind of grin on his face, like he was up to something. But he would come in and just really talk to us about the industry and being excited about it, and just try to give us good advice and stuff. And we always had a good time with him. But I knew the name Frontiers through him. He had done some solo release stuff later after Survivor and stuff. And I remembered their reputation of hearing them. And then we recognized like a lot of the bands that are on there, LA Guns and bands like that we actually toured with back in the day.
Sure.
And so we felt like it was a really good fit. When we first found out there might be an opportunity to do it, I met their U.S. rep here in Nashville and sat down and talked to him, and he was telling me about the company and how they operate and all that stuff you were saying about creative freedom and opportunities. And to us, it's something that we don't take for granted for us to be able to get together. I mean, it's something special for the four of us, especially being the original guys. We've known each other since high school, man. I mean, I quit 12th grade to tell my parents, my family that I was running away with a heavy metal band. That was an interesting conversation. I grew up in the Delta in Mississippi, grew up Southern Baptist, and that was kind of a crazy conversation. But talking to Nick, the guy from Frontiers and everything, we just felt like it was just the most incredible opportunity. I mean, we are so excited to be working with them, and hopefully we're going to be doing some shows with some of the other bands on their roster. And we're just so pumped about it. It's been like kind of riding the lightning again. We just all got together, and it was some crazy conversations at the beginning because we've all been writing and kind of woodshedding and thinking, or at least I know I did personally. I would have something and go, man, this would be fun to just work out with Keith and them, but we weren't sure timing-wise when we would have the opportunity. And I think when they came along, it was like the planets had aligned. Like our bass player had been diagnosed with cancer back in 2016, and we did a benefit for him and shot a DVD, and we were raising some money for him. Well, he got a clean bill of health from the doctor. And, I mean, the very first thing that he came out of his mouth is he said, I want to go play. I mean, he just had this urge to just go out and get back out on the road, you know. And we said, yeah, man, let's do it. And we hopped on the Monsters of Rock tour. We had planned that ahead of time. And, man, just to see his face on the boat was incredible. I'm not kidding. We were on there there was probably, 30 other bands, and we loved all of them. We were watching Kicks and, tons of other people. We had actually toured with Kicks a long time ago when we were little kids. And, I mean, they still sound amazing. That dude, Steve, is an incredible singer. But there was all these bands that were on there that we were super fans of. And then we got to see all the promoters and the fans and all that stuff. And he was just lit up. You know, he had this huge smile on his face the whole time, and that was worth the whole trip. And so when that happened, we said, man, you know what? We should do this more often, where we could just get away. You know, the children are getting bigger.
Right.
We're not cool to them anymore. They have their own agendas. They're all kind of running around, have their own things going on. And we said, man, we can sneak off. So we got a little more active around that 2016, 2017 time.
Okay.
And Frontiers had reached out to us during that time, and it just seemed like it was the right opportunity. You know, when we were talking about timing a minute ago, it just seemed like it landed in our lap, where we said, you know what, let's mark out some time. And we worked really hard on doing our pre-production together. And also, you know, having technology the way it is nowadays made it a lot easier with me not being in town for us to work together. And we worked on the road like we used to. You know, we were booking gigs, and we'd get together and just get in the hotel room and work on arrangements and, you know, video our hands and send each other our riffs and all that stuff. So, I mean, man, dude, we were like a bunch of giddy little kids. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was just so exciting. And it was so fun to be creative in that creative element again with each other. I mean, we were on the road, but we were playing a lot of the, you know, 3 or 4 records that we had for a long time, you know, and we want people to hear that. We want to go play it. We still love those songs. And when you said something about the records earlier, it just meant a lot to me, because we worked on those records hard, and we owe a huge debt of gratitude to the engineers and producers that we were working with back then. We were kind of a little rowdy garage band.
Right.
Know? And we went into Ardent, and man, I mean, that first record, Surprise Attack, it blew us away, man. I mean, we went in, and they were like, we were working with Joe Hardy, who had done a bunch of the ZZ Top Afterburner, and they had come off a lot of success. And there was another producer on it, Paul Ebersole. He's the guy that we had recorded with when we did our EP. And he brought us to Ardent, and they talked to us about doing a production deal. So he was in there co-producing with Joe. But, I mean, man, the production that they did, we're still so proud of the way those records sound. I mean, they made us sound really good, especially at where we were as far as players. And I think you can feel it, or at least we could, between the first one and the second one. We became a little more seasoned on our instruments just from being out on the road. You know, we became better players, and we gained a little more confidence about what we were doing. You know, we had never toured or traveled or anything. So, I mean, when we went on the road and went out for that record, that was crazy. I mean, it was like a whole big, you know, introduction to the world. And we came back and wanted to talk about it and work on it. And we all contributed a lot to the arrangements. We worked on the second record with John Hampton and Arthur Payson. And John specifically gave us a lot of freedom. He would come and do pre-production with us. He was an incredible drummer, but we had a rehearsal place that was about maybe a block away from Ardent. So we would go over and borrow mics and cords and keyboards and all kinds. I mean, he'd come in with just a big old armful of goodies every time he walked in, and we would sit down, and, you know, he just kind of stretched us, man. We had kind of, I guess, just gained some confidence and got some experience. And then he was like, all right, now you've got this, so let's see what else you got, you know? And so things like as time goes by and all that, I mean, the reason that song was around is because he brought a keyboard over to the jam room one day, and we were sitting there. He was playing the drums, and I had the keyboard out. And, you know, it was just funny. I mean, it was just, he had a huge influence on us, and we miss him like crazy. He passed away about 4 years ago, as well as the owner of the studio, John Fry, who was he was kind of a father figure to our band. And both of them, and Paul Ebersole, all those guys from the Ardent camp, I mean, totally changed our life. I mean, we were just a bunch of little kids, and then the next thing we were on like the Hard 60, you know, had a number one single out on the countdown, and I mean, it was just the craziest. It was like being in a movie, man. I'm not kidding. And it feels like another lifetime. I mean, I'd look at it, you know, and think about it and just go, wow, this has just been the craziest experience reflecting back on that stuff. So
sure. No, I totally get it, man. I write books. I can't play instruments for shit, but I write books, and I've written 5 at this point, and I still look at the first one very much the same way, where it doesn't even feel like, you know, it's something in my current world. It's like a story that I know more than something I did. I know what you mean, man. It's time passes, and you maybe lose a little bit of the upfront memory, but you never lose that feeling of when you first put it out there, and you know, and you don't know, you know, that's always the biggest scary part, is when you first put it out there, you don't know how anybody's going to react, and you pray to God that nobody's going to say, oh, this sucks. But then when they start reacting to it in a, you know, in a positive way, you're like, oh my God, this is actually happening.
Yeah. And we're kind of in that mindset right now that you were talking about. I mean, and we were even feeling it, like, what is this going to be like for us to go in now to take a little snapshot of where we are as a band and everything. And I mean, I laughed. I was telling somebody about this, and I said, you know, when we walked in, cause I mean, we've been busy and playing shows and all, I mean, we see each other, but when you go in and you're writing and run through your riffs and all that, I mean, when they hit their instruments, you know, the guitar comes on the bass and John does his drums and all that. I close my eyes and it's like stale beer and cigarettes. I smell it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. It's like we're, you know, little kids. We're 18 again. And then I open my mouth and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like 20 years down the road. You know, this is like a little different vibe going on. But overall, it was an awesome experience. I talked to Jeff Powell, is the guy that produced Bastards of BEALE, and he actually worked with us on Wild America. He was an assistant engineer back then, and he was working with Hampton, and he worked with Tom Dowd, who was a really famous producer that did everything from Aretha Franklin to the Allman Brothers to Leonard Skinner. And I mean, amazing. If you look him up, I mean, his roster of people he worked with was amazing. But Jeff learned from him. He learned miking techniques. He learned things about recording, and then he took that and did things on his own that made him super successful. Just about every engineer that worked at Ardent has gone on and been very successful, just won Grammys and things. But anyway, the awesome thing about working with him is it was like being with family. I mean, we're still telling the same dumb jokes from a long time ago. We had all these crazy experiences together back then, you know, because when we knew him before, he was the guy that if everybody left the studio, he would have to stay with us to make sure we didn't push record on the master recordings. He would go, you know, here's the volume knob, and you can turn it as loud as you want to, but don't touch anything else. And so we just had a lot of fun, and he made us really relax. You know, I went in and talked to him and said, hey man, you know, I'm not the 20-year-old Anthony Horder. You know, I'm down the road a little ways. And he just said, come in, man, and do what you do, and I'm going to make you sound good. He goes, it's going to be awesome.
Sure.
And so we did a bunch of pre-production with him, and we just knew we were in good hands. We knew that he wouldn't let something out that he wouldn't want to put his stamp of approval on. And it was really, man, it was a lot of freedom. Honestly, we on this record, it's the closest thing to our first EP when we were like little kids that we've done. And we went in and cut it mostly live. I mean, just due to you know, budget and time restrictions, you know, of me coming in and out of town. We did the record real quick. We did it in about 6 days. And we would go in and just, the band was in the live room together, and then they had me isolated. So they said, if you get it, you got it. If you want to fix something or come back and sing it, you know, that's fine too, but we're going to use the mic you're going to be singing on. So just go for it, you know?
Right.
And that's what we did. We went in and we would listen back to the track. And if John and him felt good about it, then Keith would double his guitar. And man, there's not a tambourine, there's not a keyboard, there's like a little bit of background vocal, but it's just us raw.
Sure.
It's like guitars and singing. And it was so fun. It was like enlightening. You know, we just went in and said, man, let's just take a picture of who we are. This is what we sound like. And it was a lot of freedom in it. We hope everybody likes it. When you were saying that a second ago about just starting out when you're little and putting something out and wondering what people are going to think, we're kind of there now too. Right. Again, it's really weird to be this far down the road and be like, well, hey, we're actually going to put something out and it's been a minute. Even you were saying earlier, you know, I hadn't heard a lot from you
right.
Through my years, you know. So we're so pumped about it. I mean, we're excited, and a lot of this record was written. Our fans wrote it. I mean, we were reflecting a lot, like thinking of the experiences that we had, and you know, I think our perspective and stuff is a little different just because we've had life experience and stuff since those guys, you know, from Wild American Revolution Day, you know, in those records. Mm-hmm. But it was just so fun. We got in there and we just said, you know, there's some things that we want to talk about and say, but from a lyrical standpoint, that we were thinking a lot about our tribe, our group, our community, and the culture. And I mean, the rock community, man, is a bunch of loyal, family-driven kind of people. I mean, it's amazing. And they embraced us. You know, when we went to Monsters of Rock and all that, we just felt like we had found our tribe, man. We got on there and we just said, oh my God, this is awesome. This is like, why aren't we doing this all the time?
Right. No doubt, man. And what's interesting with Bastards of BEALE, as well as with your entire catalog, you know, everything that I've heard, which I think is all of it, you guys always avoid, even in the heyday, you were not this overly polished, you know, band. You guys always were like gritty and a little bit more raw than most of the bands that were out there. And I honestly think, and you know, I'm curious what you think. I think that has left Tora Tora as a band that does not, that kind of, you're still creating what sounds like good rock and roll music because it doesn't sound overly produced. It just sounds like rock and roll. I'm not comparing your band to the Rolling Stones in any way, but you know how they, if you listen to their first album, if you listen to their last record, they still have that same sort of sound. And you guys, even after all these years, have that same sort of gritty, raw sound.
I think it is individually, each person on their instruments, when we get together, and Jeff even said this, he came to the benefit that we had for Patrick, and you know, we had some people that would get up in between the acts and say something about Patrick or whatever. But he wrote me after that, like a couple months later, just out of the blue, and said, man, I can't quit thinking about that show. He said, it's just something about the four of y'all, when y'all get together, that is the Tora Tora sound. Because, I mean, we've all played with different people and done, worked on different projects and all kind of stuff. But when the four of us get together, there's this certain sound that we have. And another thing I think that made us a little different than the people that were out at the same time as us was geographically where we were located. Like, we never made the leap over to L.A. We loved it. A&M was there, and we always went there for, you know, tours and press days and all that stuff, and wanted to be out there as much as we could. But we were always based out of Memphis, and I think that played a huge part in that gritty kind of sound. You know, there was definitely something that blues flavor and the soul thing had kind of trickled into our sound from the get-go. And I mean, from my perspective, my family influenced me a lot. We were from the Delta, and they exposed me to all that stuff, you know, super early. They were real musical. They were kind of like porch pickers. They never played professionally or anything, but they were super talented on my mom's side. And I didn't realize it until I got older how much, you know, of a profound influence that they had on me growing up musically, from a musical standpoint or whatever. But anyway, I think just being from Memphis gave us kind of that sound. And I think that it was just through osmosis, man. The people that were working there, the people that grew up, the engineers that were working there, it was going to be that. Now, they did slick us up, you know, as far as, I got to tip my hat to them, because we were pretty raw and stuff when we started. But I don't know. I think you get to the point where you're training yourself, and especially when you're being creative, you're your, you know, hardest critic. We were kind of analyzing stuff a lot, and they'd be like, man, dude, we got this. We know how to, we'll make you sound good. Kind of like what Jeff had told us, you know, now. But yeah, it's fun. And we do feel like that together there's this sound that we have. We've talked about it because we were wondering what it was going to feel like when we got in the room together and started jamming on these new songs and stuff. But it's just been the most incredible experience. I mean, I can't even put it into words. It's just been so fun, man.
Sure. Well, everybody needs to experience it for themselves. The new album from Tora Tora is called Bastards of BEALE. When is it out?
It comes out February 22nd, and we're going to release another single. We've got Rosa Jericho came out in December. We gave a sneak peek of Silence of Sirens in January, and in February we're dropping a song called Son of a Prodigal Son.
Very cool, man.
So that'll be out. It's coming out around February 21st, like a day before the record comes out. So
awesome.
And we shot the video. Man, we can't wait for you guys to see the video. It's going to be so fun. And just on the phone with you, I'm telling you, we did this kind of full circle thing.
Sure.
We went back to our roots, man. We went to Beale Street and to Handy Hall, and that's where we shot Walking Shoes like 30 years ago.
Cool. Very
The
cool.
same venue. It's still sitting there. The neon lights are on. Same pictures on the wall. I mean, we just looked around. It was like nostalgic kind of for us, man. I walked in and had my sons with me. I said, man, I was your age the last time I was in there shooting a video. You know, it's crazy. And so it was kind of fun to do full circle. We shot some in there, and then we shot a little bit at the Sam Phillips studio. So
Sure.
we can't wait for everybody to see it.
No doubt, man. Well, Anthony, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the new album. So maybe tell us a quick story about it. So what would you like us to wrap this interview up with?
Wow, man. Can we pick any song on the record?
Anything you want.
Oh, man. Okay, awesome. Well, listen, why don't we do the title cut?
All right.
Bastards of Beale. It's a great song. It's about the story of Beale Street and how Beale Street has affected all the people that came after that. So we're excited to share the story. It talks about a guy named Robert Church who actually bought Beale Street after the yellow fever epidemic, and he's the guy that brought W.C. Handy there. He was the person that started exploiting it, and it's a cool story. It was kind of based on a book, Beale Street Dynasty.
Oh.
So it's really great, and we feel like that Memphis has touched the world, man. That street, Beale Street, has done it, man. The home of the blues and rock and roll.
No doubt. Well, let's let it touch our listeners right now. This is the title track. It's Bastards of Beale. It's Tora Tora right here on your Classic Metal Show.